Who would win in a fight between Superman and Godzilla? It's been debated for years. But what if we change things up a bit? What if instead of their usual fists, they fought with their eyes? Could Superman's heat vision actually match up against the atomic breath of Godzilla? Well, it depends on how we use these abilities. And before we find out just how powerful these beams really are, let's dive into the origins of each so that we can see where their powers come from and how they work. When it comes to Superman, his heat vision isn't really a superpower in and of itself. It's actually one of his sub-powers related to his main power called supersight. This is the name given to all of Superman's Kryptonian vision powers, which include telescopic sight, microscopic sight, X-ray vision, night vision, and yes, heat vision. These abilities are all thanks to Superman's extremely advanced eyes, which were able to evolve because of the low gravity and lack of natural predators on Superman's home planet of Krypton. But when Superman came to Earth and evolved to survive on our planet, he developed an amazing set of superpowers that humans have never seen before, like his super breath and supersonic scream. His eyes were also incredibly useful to him. The ability to see clearly at great distances allowed him to spot enemies hidden far away. Plus, he could even see right through solid objects and see in the dark. It was only a matter of time until scientists on Earth realized that Superman's eyes worked a little differently than theirs. With a little bit of research and some testing, they found out that not only could Superman see things other humans couldn't, but he could do things other humans couldn't as well, like see heat signatures. Basically, Superman's eyes could detect changes in temperature, allowing him to see anything no matter how well it was hidden. At first, this was useful for crime fighting. He could see criminals even if they had managed to hide from the police. But then something interesting happened. Dr. Gil Carlisle, a scientist who was studying Superman, decided to test the hypothesis that Superman's heat vision was connected to his X-ray vision by directing the hero's own X-rays back at him. She figured that by doing this, she could make Superman's eyes work against each other. If his X-rays could go through most objects, then surely there was a way to make them burn right through other objects as well. Her hypothesis was correct, and Superman was soon blasted head-on with his own X-ray vision, knocking him out cold. This was the first time that anyone on Earth realized Superman could use his sight to actually attack people. After this, it didn't take long for scientists to figure out that Superman could also use his heat vision to attack, burning through any solid object with ease. Now Superman usually uses this ability sparingly, since he doesn't want to damage the objects around him or hurt the innocent while taking out bad guys, but that's not always possible. In Action Comics number 897, Superman was under attack by Metallo, one of Superman's deadliest foes, who feeds off kryptonite, and when Metallo got too close for comfort, Superman's only option was to use his heat vision to attack, even though this meant that he would end up burning away the forest around him. Unfortunately, this is something that Superman has to contend with pretty often. While he does try to control his heat vision and make sure he's not hurting anyone else, sometimes villains force his hand, and he has to burn through buildings and forests in order to defeat them. But what about Godzilla? His atomic breath is definitely more focused than the destructive moves of Superman. So how could it compare to heat vision? When it comes to Godzilla's atomic breath, it's literally his superpower. He breathes atomically charged energy from his mouth, and while he usually only uses it as a defensive or offensive weapon, he can choose to fire it whenever he wants. However, Godzilla's atomic breath is more than just a random ability. It's a part of him. Godzilla is a kaiju, meaning he's a gigantic monster. Not much is known about Godzilla's origins, but it is known that he was originally an ordinary human being named Shin. He was a member of the self-defense forces who was sent out to investigate strange occurrences in the sea. But when Godzilla surfaced, Shinichi was killed by his own captain. As he lay dying, he wished for someone to avenge him, and just before his heart stopped beating, his wish was granted. Shinichi was transformed into the creature known as Godzilla. But Godzilla isn't the only one of these kids. There are many of them scattered across the world. They just appear randomly and wreak havoc until they disappear again. And they seem to have a natural enemy, the Guardian Kaiju, known as King of the Monsters. When Godzilla appears, King Ghidorah shows up to stop him. Godzilla may have been created from the wishes of a dying man, but King Ghidorah seems to be a natural predator of these. Whatever the case may be, Godzilla did inherit some of Shinichi's humanity. While he's a terrifying beast, he's not completely evil. Sometimes, he even helps humans out. But regardless of his intentions, Godzilla is a powerful monster with atomic breath. that's deadly enough to kill humans with ease. Godzilla's atomic breath was first introduced in the original Godzilla movie back in 1954. Since then, it's become one of his most iconic abilities. Godzilla can shoot a constant stream of atomic breath from his mouth at nearly 130 miles per hour, which can reach temperatures up to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hot enough to melt almost anything made by human hands. Godzilla doesn't have complete control over this ability, though it seems to be triggered by emotion, usually anger. When Godzilla gets upset, he fires his atomic breath, and while he can aim it somewhat, he can't really direct it all that well. Most of the time, Godzilla ends up scorching the surrounding areas with his atomic breath. But this is still a very useful ability that can level entire cities with ease. So now we know where each of these powers comes from and what they're capable of. But which one would actually win in a fight? Well, it is hard to say since we've never really seen them go head to head like this before. We've seen Superman fight giant monsters before. He took on a giant version of Doomsday in Superman and Batman number 26. That monster was strong enough to tear apart planets and was extremely tough. But ultimately, Superman was able to defeat it with a punch that literally tore a hole in the monster's chest. So we know Superman can take down a giant monster with brute force. But what about something like Godzilla? Well, it depends on how we approach this fight. For example, if Godzilla were to get angry and start firing his atomic breath all willy-nilly, then Superman would be in trouble. Godzilla's atomic breath is simply too hot for Superman to stand up against. He would have to protect himself and fly out of the way, which would allow Godzilla to calm down. But if Superman wanted to defeat Godzilla, he would need to get close to him and deliver a powerful blow. This would mean flying right into Godzilla's face and dodging his atomic breath, which would be extremely difficult. And since we know that Godzilla's atomic breath can reach temperatures of 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, it is safe to say that even a tiny nick from it could burn Superman all the way through. On the other hand, Superman's heat vision is said to be millions of times hotter than the surface of the sun, which is about 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That means that Superman's heat vision could easily burn through Godzilla's defenses and cause some serious damage. However, we don't know if Godzilla would feel pain from this, since he's a kaiju and not an actual person. But we do know that he would probably be scared, which would only make him angrier. And when he got angrier, he would start breathing atomically charged energy at Superman, causing even more damage. So we can't really say that Superman would come out on top here either. So which one of these heroes would actually win a fight against the other? Well, it's hard to say. Both of these guys have incredible abilities that can burn through almost anything, but we do know that both of these abilities come from their eyes. It would likely come down to a battle of wills, with each guy trying to destroy the other's eyes. Superman's heat vision would likely burn away Godzilla's eyes first, but this would only make Godzilla angrier, causing him to burn away Superman's eyes with his atomic breath, and that's exactly what would happen. In the end, both Superman and Godzilla would end up losing their eyesight, and maybe even their lives. Now watch as Superman vs Goku gets real ugly, or check out how the Justice League would deal with the whole multiverse.